You wake up face down in mud. That's the first thing you notice. Not the early morning fog rolling over the open field like a sleepy ghost, not the blaring horns in the distance, not even the guttural shouts of angry, malnourished men sharpening blades with all the enthusiasm of someone about to be eaten by a bear. No, it's the mud. Cold, wet, regret-flavored. Your cheek is plastered against it like a sad pancake. Welcome to the 14th century. You're late. Your nostrils fill with the scent of soil, horse dung, and raw fear. Not metaphorical fear. Literal fear. It has a smell. A bit like spoiled milk left out in a boot during a thunderstorm. You try to move, but your body is wrapped in layers of linen, leather, and chainmail that weighs more than your last emotional breakdown. Good morning, soldier. You're in the middle of a medieval battlefield, and things are about to get loud. Now, before you settle into this charmingly grim reality, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, no pressure. Unless you're from the 1300s, in which case, pressure is coming in the form of a Flemish pike to your spleen. Also, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always a fun reminder that somewhere in the world, someone is falling asleep to the sound of a mun describing axe wounds. Sweet dreams. Now, where were we? Yes. Mud, misery, and the subtle whiff of mortality. You lift your face and squint at the horizon. It's barely dawn, but the air is already buzzing with movement. Birds are avoiding this place like it's a group chat full of exes. The clouds hang low. Too low. Like they're afraid of what's about to happen. In the far distance, you hear a sound. Not a horn. Not yet. It's softer, stranger, a rhythm of clinks, rustles, and muffled groans. That, dear listener, is the sound of thousands of men getting dressed to kill one another. You see, in the Middle Ages, battle preparation wasn't the sleek montage Hollywood makes it out to be. There's no heroic music. No stirring speeches. No dramatic slow motion. Just chafing. Layers of wool. A belt that doesn't fit. A helmet that smells like the last guy who wore it died in it. Which, spoiler, he did. You shuffle up to your knees, joints cracking like dry firewood, and your ears catch it again. The hiss of grinding stone against steel. Men sharpening swords, axes, and for some unfortunate souls, meat cleavers. Because when you're a peasant levied into combat, you bring whatever you've got. And sometimes, what you've got is the family kitchenware and a death wish. There's something poetic about the way it all comes together. The orchestra of warfare tuning up. The screech of whetstones, the soft jangle of chainmail like sad Christmas bells, the creak of leather straps cinched too tight. Boots squelch through wet earth. Someone coughs. Someone prays. Someone is quietly vomiting into a helmet behind a cart. Classic medieval pregame. And it's not just humans making noise. Behind you, the horses shuffle nervously. War horses, taller than most men, smarter than some of them too. Their breath clouds in the cool air, and they huff like they know what's coming. Spoiler again, they do. These aren't the sparkly, friendly ponies of fairy tale. These are trained war beasts that have been conditioned to charge into spears and over the broken remains of your enemies. Or you, depending on how the day goes. Their hooves strike the earth like distant drums. Not elegant. Not smooth. Just persistent. Like the world's most threatening metronome. You glance over and see a squire trying to calm one of them down. The horse whinnies, then sneezes directly into the boy's face. History. Isn't it beautiful? Somewhere to the left, a trumpet blurts out a note so wrong, you're not sure if it's a signal or someone giving up halfway through the song. Either way, it means time is ticking. The officers start barking orders, their voices hoarse from years of shouting into wind and stupidity. There are no microphones. Just yelling. So much yelling. If you weren't scared before, being shouted at by a man named Sir Godfrey the Mirthless will definitely do the trick. You finally stand, sort of. Your knees aren't fans of vertical life anymore. Every joint is a protest movement. Your armor squeaks with every step like an old leather couch from a divorced salesman cave. You're technically wearing what passes for protection in this period. A padded gambeson underneath a coat of chainmail that weighs about 30 pounds, give or take how much it's soaked up your sweat. There's a helmet, of course. It blocks your peripheral vision and every third thought. You look around. and the sun is starting to rise, peeking over the hills like it's not sure if it wants to see what's about to happen. Light catches on metal, blades, helmets, buckles. The battlefield begins to shimmer. Not in a good way. Not like enchanted forest shimmer. More like this is where dreams come to die shimmer. Then comes the horns. Not elegant brass instruments. These are rough, animal horn monstrosities that produce a sound somewhere between a dying whale and a grumpy grandfather waking up. You feel it in your bones. Not metaphorically. Your ribs literally vibrate with the pressure of that noise. It's the kind of sound that says, this is your last chance to go home. Too bad your home is a burned-down cottage and a rat with your name. The horns are followed by drums. Big ones. Loud ones. Not the kind your nephew plays in his garage band. These are tree-trunk-sized drums beaten with mallets the size of legs. Their rhythm is simple, doom, doom, doom. It's not even music. It's more like a countdown. Each beat slaps your chest like a wet fish. You start to feel it, your heart sinking to the beat, your breath hitching, your stomach twisting itself into a charming little knot. But you can't back out. Not now. You look down the line and see others just like you. Some in mail, some in plate, some in just a tunic and blind optimism. A few have helmets, a few don't. One guy is holding what you're pretty sure is a gardening hoe. Everyone's trying to act brave. No one succeeding. You hear another sound now, one that's easy to miss in the chaos, but unforgettable once you notice it. The soft, wet squelch of mud as soldiers shift nervously, stepping in and out of puddles. Mud is the great equalizer on a battlefield. Doesn't matter if you're a noble knight or a broke peasant, everyone slips, everyone falls, everyone eventually eats a faceful of sludge. You will too. Probably soon. Nearby, someone lets out a loud fart. No one reacts. Not because they didn't hear it, but because it's just part of the experience now. There's no dignity here. Just bowel movements and the slow death of hope. You tighten your grip on your weapon. It's a sword, technically. Clunky. Slightly bent. Stained with something brownish. Hopefully rust. Hopefully. You hold it like a child clutching a security blanket. It offers about the same level of protection. But it's all you got. Well, that and your winning personality. Off in the distance, the enemy is assembling. You can't see them clearly yet, just rows of movement and glints of steel. Their banners flap in the breeze, like they're mocking you. Each one tells a story. Of a lord. Of a house. Of a region that wants to kill your region because of taxes or salt or someone insulted someone's goat 20 years ago. Who knows? You certainly don't. You just got conscripted last week because you owned a strong back and a suspiciously pointy stick. The soundscape evolves again. Men muttering prayers under their breath. Some whispering to lovers long gone. Some to saints. Some to weapons. You hear one guy promising his axe that if it gets him through this, he'll name his firstborn after it. Hope you like the name Geraldine, sir. Then comes the clatter. Weapons tapping shields. Blades against blades. It's rhythmic. Intentional. Psychological warfare in its most primal form. You're being dared to move. Dared to blink. Dared to breathe. The noise is relentless, building like a wave you know is going to crash down on your fragile little existence. And yet, strangely, it's hypnotic. All of it. The rhythm of drums. The screech of horns. The creak of armor. The breath of horses. The prayers. The fear. The farts. The mud. It's all part of the grand, disgusting symphony that is medieval combat. You're not sure when it starts, but suddenly you're moving. Slowly at first. A step. Another. The line begins to advance. You try not to think about what happens next, because if you do, you'll freeze. Or wet yourself. Possibly both. The sounds change again. From ambient to aggressive. Screams now. Metal against metal. Arrows whistling past like angry birds with murderous intent. Your ears are full. Your chest is tight. You want to run, but your feet are already moving forward. This is it. No turning back. No undo button. No respawn. Just you, your sword, and about 3,000 bad decisions all marching into history together. And yet, in a weird way, it's kind of peaceful. Terrifying, yes. Loud, sure. Smelly? Oh, absolutely. but peaceful in the way that everything makes a strange sort of sense. You're just a small part of a massive, tragic machine. No emails, no traffic, no reality shows, just the sound of breath, blood, and battle. You take another step, and another. The symphony plays on. Welcome to the medieval battlefield. Sleep tight. The first thing that hits you, aside from the arrow that narrowly misses your left ear, is the sheer volume. No, not of men yelling or swords clanging. That's child's play. The real star of this auditory nightmare is chaos. Pure, organic, undistilled chaos. The kind that's been aged in an oak barrel of bad planning and generational trauma. And lucky you've got a front row seat. Or more accurately, you are the seat. For something. Probably a horse. Or a halberd. The line surges forward. You try to keep up, boot sticking in the mud like it's trying to adopt you. Your sword bounces awkwardly in your hand, which, despite what the minstrel songs say, is not how swords are supposed to behave. It's less Excalibur and more mildly haunted crowbar. The monk to your right mutters something in a dialect that might be French or possibly just existential dread. He's bleeding from the nose and seems pretty chill about it. The monk to your left? Not even a mun. A boy. No beard, wide eyes, shaking hands. He holds a spear like it might turn into a loaf of bread if he wishes hard enough. It won't. It never does. You step over what might be a fallen comrade or a particularly large sack of meat with air. Hard to tell. You don't ask. No one asks. There's no time for introductions or goodbyes. Just marching. And occasionally screaming. And then it begins. For real this time. The first clash. It's not cinematic. There's no slow motion. No heroic angle. It's just two walls of people slamming into each other like the world's worst group hug. You're shoved forward into a mess of limbs and steel and yelling. Your ears fill with the sound of impact, bone on metal, metal on flesh, flesh on poor decisions. You're no longer standing on solid ground. You're standing on bodies. Yours could be next. Someone shouts something that might be a command. Or maybe it's just duck. You don't. You're too slow. Something crashes into your helmet. Hard. Your ears ring like someone just dropped a cathedral bell on your head. You taste blood. Or it could be yesterday's turnip stew making a reappearance. Either way, it's nostalgic. Let's talk about sound now, shall we? Not the big, booming, Hollywood kind. The real sounds. The forgotten ones. The intimate, crunchy, awkward, and very moist sounds of a medieval battlefield. They're the kind you don't read about in textbooks. Too undignified. Too squishy. Like the sound of an axe going through chainmail. It's not a clean slice. It's more like someone hitting a wet log with a metal spatula. There's a splatter, a crunch, and a grunt that sounds deeply offended. Or the sound of a spear entering a torso. Not a stab so much as a damp intrusion, followed by a surprise gurgle, and usually, some swearing. And let's not forget arrows. Oh, the arrows. They don't whistle romantically through the air. They scream. Tiny, deadly banshees flung from hell. They sound like someone snapping twigs right next to your ear, over and over and over again. And when they land, well, that's either a dull thud or a juicy splat. Sometimes both. Your helmet muffles most of it, but it's like being inside a giant metal bowl while someone makes soup out of people. You can hear your breath, shallow and fast. You can hear someone screaming your name, except no one here knows your name, so that's concerning. You hear sobbing, grunting, praying, coughing. The occasional ow that sounds way too casual for the situation. It's all happening around you and to you, and you're just trying not to die before lunch. A man falls in front of you, clutching his stomach. You don't look. You can't. You step over him and keep moving because stopping is a good way to become a speed bump for a warhorse. Speaking of which, let's discuss warhorses again, shall we? Imagine a piano with hooves, teeth, and unresolved trauma charging at you at full speed. That's a warhorse. It sounds like thunder married an earthquake and had angry metal children. Their hooves punch the earth, the leather saddles creak, and their breath sounds like a forge exhaling. One barrels past you, narrowly avoiding your skull. Its rider swings a flail that misses your head by maybe half an inch. The flail makes a whoosh. Not a cartoon whoosh. A terrifying, air-ripping sound that reminds you how soft your face is. Now, here's a fun fact to gently lull you back into a false sense of relaxation. Armor doesn't stop everything. Contrary to what movies would have you believe, wearing a full suit of chainmail doesn't turn you into a walking tank. It turns you into a loud, clumsy, slightly heat-stroked man who still very much feels the sword that just cracked his ribs. You feel every hit, every jolt. Every time someone's weapon connects with your armor, it vibrates through your body like bad news through a family reunion. The sound of metal hitting metal is sharp. It rings. It sings, in a way, a deeply angry song in the key of "You're going to die." Sometimes the sound of the battlefield pauses, just for a second. A weird pocket of silence, where all you hear is your own breath, your heart pounding in your ears, and maybe, just maybe, a man a few feet away quietly saying, "Oh no." Then it picks up again, louder than before, like someone hit rewind and play at the same time. In the chaos, someone grabs your arm. You swing. It's a friend. Or maybe a stranger who thought you were a friend. Too late now. He's down. That's on you. Don't worry. That'll haunt your dreams. Or would, if you weren't too exhausted to sleep ever again. The battlefield is now fully engaged. The sound is constant. Alive. The clanging, screaming, crying symphony of panic and pain. And the smell, oh, the smell. Rotting meat, burned wood, open wounds, wet wool, horse sweat, man sweat, and what might be onions. Somehow, always onions. But let's pause and pan out a bit. Let's take a slow, deep breath together. Inhale, the stench of blood and bile. Exhale, your will to live. Good. The thing about medieval battles is that they weren't quick. Not usually. They were hours, sometimes entire days. And most of that time, you weren't fighting. You were waiting. Standing around, holding a weapon, pretending to look busy while slowly losing circulation in your toes. So let's imagine that moment now. After the first clash, after the first wave, you're back in the second line, breathing, bleeding, not dead. Yet, you're listening again. The sounds change once more. Less clashing, more moaning. The wounded, dozens, maybe hundreds, lying in the mud, crying out. Some are asking for water, some for their mothers. Some are trying to pull arrows out of their own bodies like it's a casual Tuesday. You hear a man trying to sing a hymn, but he keeps forgetting the words. It trails off into humming. Then silence. Birds have started to return. Idiots. Crows circle overhead. They know what's coming. They always do. One lands nearby and caws once, like it's laughing. You stare at it. It stares back. You blink. It wins. It always wins. Someone tries to rally the troops with a speech. You can't hear most of it. Just fragments: honor, king, God, guts, glory, no refunds. Standard stuff. You nod politely, even though you're not sure if it's meant for you or the guy who just passed out next to your boot. Then there's marching. Again, you're repositioned, reformed, realigned. This time, you're further up the line. Lucky you. Promotion by attrition. The sound of marching soldiers is a rhythm you come to know well. Boots in unison, armor creaking, weapons jangling. A metallic rustle, like an army of wind chimes trying to form a union. Occasionally someone trips. No one helps them up. If they get up, they get up. If not, well, there's always more conscripts. You pass a cart. It's broken. A wheel lies nearby like a wounded limb. The cart's contents have spilled, a pile of dented helmets, broken spears, and what looks like, bread. That's your lunch. Now marinated in dirt and regret. There's a lull now. Both sides are regrouping. You can hear the messengers galloping back and forth behind the lines. Their horses are lean, fast, miserable. The messengers yell things like "form up," or "hold the line," or, in some cases, "Oh God, they have archers." Which reminds you, archers. They're behind you. Or were. You glance back just in time to hear the familiar command shouted, "Loose." And then it rains. Arrows hiss past your ears like furious insects. You duck instinctively, but really, there's no point. If one's meant for you, it'll find you. They fall in waves. You hear the thunk of wood into shield. The splat of flesh. The scream of someone who was really hoping today was not his last. The guy next to you takes one to the thigh and goes down hard. You try not to follow. The cavalry charges again. You hear them coming before you see them. The earth trembles. Men shout warnings. Horns blow. Horses shriek. Not neigh, shriek. Like banshees in steel shoes. And then they're upon you again. The clash is louder this time. Messier. More desperate. You swing your sword. You think you hit something. Or someone. It bounces. Your hands rattle. You almost drop it. You try again. This time, something gives. Something soft. There's blood. You can't tell whose. Time blurs. Sound becomes color. Screams turn into static. You feel hot, cold, wet, dry. Your senses stop filing individual complaints and just start panicking in unison. And then, slowly, the noise fades. The fight moves on. Not far. Just far enough that you're no longer in the epicenter. You're in the aftermath. The sounds are softer now. Moaning, gurgling, distant cries. You can hear your own breath again. Labored, shaky. You sink to your knees. Mud squelches beneath you. You drop your sword. Your hands are shaking. Your armor is dented, your helmet is cracked, and your soul is somewhere between numb and what even was that? You hear a man praying nearby, loudly, passionately, in Latin, with poor pronunciation. You don't correct him. Your ears are ringing, constantly. A high-pitched whine, like tinnitus, but with a personality. You sit there, staring at nothing, listening to everything. And in that moment, just for a second, it's almost quiet. Almost. And that, dear listener, is the sound of surviving a medieval battlefield. Not winning, just surviving. Which, in this century, is basically the same thing. Now breathe. Gently. Slowly. The next wave is coming. But not yet. For now, just rest. There's a moment in the hours after battle, after the clash, the blood, the noises you'll never fully forget, where time just sags. You sit in the mud, no idea if it's still morning or if you've slipped into some post-trauma time loop. The light's dimmer now. Could be dusk. Could be smoke. Could be your vision is going. You wouldn't be surprised. You've got a bump on your temple the size of a pigeon's ego. It's not quiet, not exactly. But the battlefield has switched genres. Gone is the full-volume chaos of clashing armies. Now, it's more of a medieval jazz album, slow, moody, full of unexpected groans and the occasional sad horn. The moaning picks up again. It's coming from somewhere, behind you, or maybe in front. Your directional hearing gave up 3 concussions ago. Men are lying in the muck like discarded marionettes, making that low, pitiful sound that says, I regret every life decision that brought me here, especially not taking up that monastery gig. You hear the unmistakable squelch of someone walking through guts. That's not a metaphor. That's literal guts. They're everywhere. Spilled like a stew that God dropped because he tripped over hubris. Someone's retching. Loudly. You think about joining in, just for company. And then the scavengers arrive. No, not wolves. Not yet. People. Camp followers, looters, non-combat logistics personnel, if you're feeling fancy. They pick their way through the carnage like raccoons at a luxury buffet. They're here for everything that isn't nailed down or bleeding too loudly. Shoes, coins, food, jewelry, intact limbs, all fair game. You see a guy taking a helmet off a corpse that still twitches. He gives you a nod. Like your neighbors. You nod back. You're not proud. You hear soft muttering, prayers, curses, things in between. One man, face covered in blood, is gently explaining to his own severed foot that it wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't. Someone nearby starts singing. A lullaby, maybe. The voice cracks. Stops. You stand. Or try to. Every joint protests like an underpaid actor forced into a sequel. You wobble upright and begin the slow trudge back toward what's generously called the camp. Really, it's a chaotic sprawl of tents, carts, fires, and human suffering organized by the principles of entropy and bad weather. As you walk, your boots make a familiar sound, the sticky squish of leather in mud mixed with everything else the battlefield has generously donated to the soil. It's the soundtrack of survival. It's also what your nightmares will be scored to for the next 30 years. A trumpet sounds in the distance. Not the good kind. Not even the mediocre kind. It sounds like someone's trying to murder a goose with a soup can, which means one of the commanders has decided to speak. You pause at the edge of the camp and watch as some unfortunate soul with a feathered hat and a wildly unjustified sense of confidence tries to rally the survivors. He's standing on a box, reading from a scroll. Probably something about glory, or God, or taxes. The men around you are not inspired. One is sleeping with his eyes open. Another is sewing his own shoulder shut with a fishing hook. He's doing a pretty good job, honestly. The speaker's voice rises. He shouts about honor, brotherhood. You notice he is suspiciously clean, suspiciously uninjured. You also notice that no one is throwing anything at him, which is a shame. You pass a fire where some men are burning bloodied clothing. It smells like wool, iron, and last chances. There's no soap, just hot water, dirt, and prayers. The men are scraping gore off their armor with sticks. One guy is trying to dry his socks by the flames. The socks are steaming. He does not look hopeful. Now, the tents. Oh yes, the tents. They're technically made of cloth. They technically provide shelter. They also technically smell like mildew and wet to spare. Yours is near the back, half collapsed, pitched on a slope so your feet are always higher than your head. Very relaxing. Really good for circulation and long-term spinal damage. Inside, your belongings are exactly where you left them, damp, moldy, and possibly hosting several fungal ecosystems. Your blanket smells like betrayal. Your pillow is a sack of straw, which has been wet for 3 days straight and now resembles a loaf of depression. You hear coughing. Deep, chesty, contagious coughing. From the next tent over. And the one next to that. And the one next to that. Ah yes. Camp disease. Nature's way of saying, you thought battle was bad? Try dysentery. There's a medic tent, of course. You can hear it from here. The screaming gives it away. You wander past it anyway. Inside, men lie on makeshift beds, more sacks, more straw, more smells. There's a surgeon somewhere in the middle, sleeves rolled up, hands covered in what used to be someone else. He's sharpening a bone saw, slowly, thoughtfully, like it's a meditation technique. You pause. You don't go in. Your leg hurts. Your ribs feel cracked. Your shoulder is numb. But you decide you're not medic tent injured yet. That's a special category. That's when you've accepted that you're about to lose a limb and probably gain a story. A donkey wanders past you. No one owns it. It's just here, judging everyone. You finally collapse near the fire pit. Someone hands you a bowl of something that is technically food. It's gray, warm, has the consistency of sadness. You eat it anyway. Chewing is optional. Let's take a moment now to really soak in this scene. Picture it. Hear it. The wind rustling through battered banners. The low mutter of exhausted men trying to barter lice-infested blankets. The occasional clink of a pot being stirred. Horses snorting in the dark. The sound of someone softly weeping while pretending they're just clearing their throat. There's a bard nearby. He's trying to play a lute. One of the strings is broken. He's compensating by humming. Badly. You think about throwing your bowl at him. You don't. You might need that bowl later, for screaming into. Time slips past like mud through chainmail. You sit by the fire and try to warm your hands. They're shaking. Could be adrenaline. Could be cold. Could be trauma. Could be all three, playing a lovely little medieval jazz trio in your nervous system. Someone tells a joke. It involves a bishop, a goat, and 3 barrels of mead. No one laughs. Not because it isn't funny, though it isn't, but because laughter takes energy. And you're all out of that. You lie back on the ground. There's a rock under your shoulder blade. You don't move it. You've accepted the rock. It's a part of you now. Like the blood in your mouth. Like the smell in your hair. Like the tinnitus in your ears, which is now harmonizing with the donkey's distant braying. Stars peek through the smoke. The sky is absurdly beautiful. Which feels rude, honestly. You fought through a meat blender, and now the sky is putting on a whole galaxy show like it's trying to flirt. You close your eyes. You breathe. And then someone farts. Loudly. The donkey brays again. A mun begins snoring nearby. Another talks in his sleep, something about pies and stabbing. You decide not to investigate. This is your lullaby, the song of the aftermath. A soundscape of exhaustion, gas, regret, mild brain damage, and communal disappointment. Sleep comes in patches. Like your blanket. Like your memories. It pulls you down, then spits you back up, then pulls again. Half sleep. Dreamless. Or maybe just too tired to remember. You think you hear the sound of church bells. Which is odd. Because there's no church. Just silence. Just the wind. Just the soft clatter of armor being put away, and the very distant hum of someone who still remembers how to sing. Quietly. Just under their breath. You drift. Tomorrow, you march again. But tonight, you listen. The next day starts not with a sunrise or a rooster crowing, but with someone vomiting behind your tent. It's a kind of retching that echoes across time. Dry, wet, then dry again. A poetic rhythm of despair. You lie there with your eyes closed, blanket tangled around one leg like a clinging ex-lover who smells like mildew and defeat. Your mouth tastes like you chewed on a copper coin and then cried about it. Someone coughs. Someone else yells. A third person trips over a sleeping dog. That's the medieval alarm clock. No snooze button. Just misery, on loop. You slowly sit up. Every part of you has filed a formal complaint. Your spine sounds like someone cracking walnuts inside a coffin. Your knees are auditioning for the role of medieval creaky door. Your ribs feel like they've been emotionally manipulated by a trebuchet. Outside, it's morning. Or what passes for it. A gray, sullen sky. Low mist clinging to the grass like a reluctant ghost. You inhale deeply. Regret that decision instantly. The air smells like smoke, manure, wet iron, and secrets. You stand. It's not graceful. It's more of a controlled fall, but vertical. Your clothes are still damp. Your armor has grown a thin film of something that might be moss. Your boots make that sound again, schlop, as you move. Like you're stepping in someone's bad decisions. As you trudge toward the center of camp, you hear the sounds of the army attempting to become a functioning organism again. It's a mess. Always is. Blacksmiths are hammering out dents in swords that no longer resemble weapons, but rather modernist sculptures of violence. The ringing of hammer on iron is rhythmic, like a heartbeat with trauma. You walk past a forge where the smith is yelling at his apprentice for melting a horseshoe into something vaguely erotic. You pretend not to notice. You pass the stables. Horses shuffle nervously, eyes wide. They know what's coming. They always do. A squire tries to saddle one and gets kicked square in the dignity. He wheezes. The horse looks smug. You nod in silent respect. Breakfast is being served. A loose term. Today's meal is a thick, lumpy porridge. Color, uncertain. Texture, wallpaper paste mixed with regret. Taste, somewhere between warm sadness and boiled towel. You eat it anyway. The alternative is hunger, and your body already hates you enough. So, before you get too cozy in the scent of equine sweat and human shame, do me a quick favor. Like this video and subscribe if this gentle descent into historical misery is helping you drift off. And if you're still awake, barely, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I'm always fascinated by which time zones enjoy medieval suffering as a lullaby. Now, back to your emotional support porridge. Someone beside you mutters that they think they saw an angel last night. Turns out it was just a man wandering shirtless and glowing with fever. A healer gave him some leeches and a rock to bite. Modern medicine, medieval edition. A captain wanders by. He's got that haunted look in his eyes, like a man who's seen too many spreadsheets made out of blood. He's muttering about troop positions and supply wagons, and that one guy who still hasn't returned the spade. You don't make eye contact. A trumpet blares. Badly. Again. You think they're doing it on purpose now. That's the signal, morning orders. A man with a scroll begins shouting names, places, instructions. You can't hear most of it over the collective groan of 100 soldiers pretending they didn't hear their names. You catch the word reconnaissance, marshland, and no boots provided. Fantastic. You're assigned to something called perimeter security, which is code for stand in the mud until your soul detaches. You nod. Accept your fate. Eat one more bite of warm paste. As you make your way out of camp, you pass the latrines. Let's talk about that. The medieval latrine is not a glamorous experience. It's a trench. A literal hole in the ground, sometimes with a plank across it if someone's feeling fancy. The smell is biblical. You try not to breathe. You fail. Your nose regrets existing. Nearby, a group of archers are arguing over who gets the last clean pair of gloves. Clean here means only slightly bloodstained. One of them claims he washed his in a stream. The others remind him that stream is also where the horses bathe, the cooks get water, and the dead were briefly floating yesterday. Debate ends quickly. You arrive at your post. It's a ridge overlooking a field of flattened grass and broken spears. Birds are picking at the leftovers. One crow is proudly dragging off a severed finger. You envy its confidence. Your job is to stand still and look intimidating. You do neither particularly well. You shift your weight. Your back aches. You itch in places you can't legally scratch in public. You lean on your spear like a grandpa leaning on wisdom he never had. Hours pass. A bee buzzes near your face. You consider stabbing it. You don't. It might win. The sun climbs. The mud dries slightly, then gets wet again because, surprise, rain. You sigh? Hood up, armor damp again. You are 78% fungus at this point. You could be classified as a mushroom by any passing botanist. Good thing there aren't any. They'd conscript you. Eventually, a scout returns from the hills. He's covered in mud, looks haunted, and only speaks in monosyllables now. He hands a note to your superior and walks straight into the river. You don't stop him. He's earned that walk. The note says the enemy is regrouping, which means soon more marching, more noise, more blood, more people shouting things like hold the line, and for glory, and where's my other boot? You sigh. Again. Someone offers you a piece of hardtack. It's a biscuit. In the same way that being punched is a hug. You try to chew it. It fights back. You lose. Evening begins to creep in. The clouds get darker. The wind shifts. You smell distant smoke, probably a village that had the audacity to exist near a strategic hill. War is a generous host. It visits everyone, whether they invited it or not. You walk back to camp in silence. On the way, you step over a broken cart. A wheel is still spinning. No one knows why. It adds a slightly creepy horror movie vibe to the whole trek. You approve. Dinner is served. It's the same porridge from this morning, but with mystery chunks. You ask what they are. The cook stares at you. Doesn't blink. You eat in silence. A bard tries to sing again. Same broken lute. Same broken dreams. He's now wearing a hat made of feathers, possibly stolen from a roast goose. He sings about a noble knight who once fell in love with a swamp witch. It ends badly. Most things do. The fire crackles. The men around you speak in low voices, some sharing jokes, others silent. One is sketching a picture in the dirt with a twig. It looks like a cat. Or a sword. Or a sword cat. You nod in approval. As the sun sets, you lie down once more. The ground is your mattress. The sky is your blanket. The distant, unsettling howls of wolves are your white noise machine. You close your eyes. You breathe. And just before you sleep, you hear it. The soft metallic rattle of a helmet being set down. The creak of leather boots drying by the fire. And the wind. Always the wind. It whispers through tents, over armor, past broken spears and spent arrows. It sings a song made of everything you've lost and everything you'll never say out loud. Sleep, brave disaster. Tomorrow waits. You wake up to the sound of something chewing near your face. Not someone. Something. You crack open one eye. And sure enough, there's a goat standing over you, gnawing contemplatively on your tunic like it's just trying to get the hem right. You don't scream. You're too tired for emotions. You just sigh, roll away, and let the goat win. The ground is damp. The air is colder now. Morning fog rolls through the camp like it's auditioning for a haunted forest. Visibility, approximately potato. You sit up, your joints cracking like a cheap chandelier falling down a staircase. The straw pillow has left a fascinating impression on your face, one that says, I haven't known comfort in years. You reach for your water skin and discover it's frozen. That's right. It's cold enough for water to be solid, but not cold enough for anyone to actually care. Welcome to the delightful in-between season known as pre-winter, or as the peasants call it. Why did we ever settle here? You stagger to your feet. Your back pops again. Your toes feel like frozen peas inside boiled leather. Your armor is stiff with yesterday's dried sweat, grime, and the faint smell of desperation. You begin your daily routine of medieval hygiene. Spit into your hand. Rub it on your face. Pretend that helped. You make your way toward the center of camp. People are moving in slow, miserable waves. The camp is quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It's the quiet of people preserving energy, like animals before a storm or accountants during tax season. Someone's baking bread over a low fire. It smells amazing. You approach, and the baker immediately tells you to go away. "This isn't for you," he says, not even looking up. You nod respectfully and walk off, chewing on the crust of yesterday's regrets. Nearby, a knight is screaming at a squire because his armor is tarnished. It's unclear whether he's upset about the tarnish or because he just discovered the squire has been using the breastplate to store pickled onions. Either way, the yelling continues for longer than it needs to. You walk faster. You pass the blacksmith again. He's still hammering away, face streaked with soot and righteous fury. He hasn't blinked in what feels like 3 days. He might be part machine, or just incredibly angry. His apprentice is turning the wheel on the forge, looking like he'd sell his soul for a nap and a hot bath. You relate deeply. Just past the smithy is the quartermaster's tent, a magical place where supplies go to vanish. You approach, hoping to get a new pair of gloves. The quartermaster laughs in your face, then offers you a sock with a hole in it and says, "Use it creatively." You accept the sock and walk away. The day's assignment arrives via a sweating boy on a skinny horse. He's got a scroll, a crossbow that's too big for him, and the unmistakable expression of someone who was absolutely not born for this century. He hands off the orders with a shrug and gallops away, straight into a bush. You read the message. Recon again. This time, further north. Lovely. You gather your kit. Sword, spear, rope, sadness. The essentials. You team up with 2 others. One is named Reg, short for something you'll never learn. He smells like onions and fear. The other is a guy called Ren, whose only personality trait is that he once stabbed a mun in the leg and apologized afterward. You set out. The terrain is awful. Muddy, rocky, full of thorns and betrayal. Every step is either a near fall or an actual fall. Reg steps in a hole and yells a curse so blasphemous it probably made a saint somewhere throw up. Ren keeps humming. You hate it. As you walk, the sound shifts. The camp fades behind you. No more barking dogs, blacksmiths shouting about iron purity, or someone trying to play a flute using only spite. Now it's just wind. The wind is everywhere. In your ears. In your sleeves. In your soul. It whistles through the trees, moaning gently like the ghosts of people who died from boredom during patrol duty. You cross a stream. It smells faintly of sulfur and worse decisions. You hop rocks to avoid getting your boots wet. You slip anyway. Now 1 foot squelches with every step. The squelch becomes your rhythm. Step, squelch. Step, squelch. Eternal despair, squelch. Rage spots movement up ahead. You crouch. It's dramatic. It hurts your knees. Turns out, it's just deer. 3 of them. Graceful. Beautiful. Unbothered. You all watch in silence as they leap away. Must be nice, Ren mutters. You all agree. You stop on a hill overlooking a burned village. Charred beams. Smoke still rising. No birds. No life. It's quiet. Unnaturally so. You listen. Crows, somewhere far off. The creak of a loose shutter on a wind-torn hut. The slow hiss of a fire dying. Reg sniffs. I think I smell bread. You all stare at him. You investigate the remains. There's nothing left but ash, broken pottery, and 1 slightly melted candlestick shaped like a lion. You pocket it. You don't know why. It just feels like it deserves a second chance. Suddenly, movement. Behind a collapsed wall, something shifts. You draw your sword. The others do too. For once, you're united. Quiet. Alert. Out steps a child. Covered in soot. Silent. Holding a wooden spoon, like it's a weapon. You all freeze. Then Ren kneels and offers a piece of hardtack. The child takes it. Bites it. Immediately regrets that choice. Tears up. Throws it back. Fair. You search the ruins. Find signs of looting. Not by your side, different boots, different patterns. Raiders, bandits, possibly mercenaries. You take notes on a piece of leather. You'll report it. You leave food behind for the child. A small pouch of dried beans and a boiled egg. That's basically a feast. You don't wait for thanks. You begin your return. The way back is quieter, heavier. Everyone's thinking about the village, the ashes, the kid, the spoon. It hangs in the air like smoke you can't wash out of your clothes. Back at camp, the mood hasn't improved. Amun is arguing with the priest about whether or not God was present during the last skirmish. The priest says yes. The Mon says no, but if he was clearly rooting for the other side. The cook has burned the stew. Again. The latrine overflowed. Again. Someone got caught kissing the commander's wife. Again. You report your findings to the captain. He listens. Nods. Says something about moving soon. North, he says. Always north. You nod, though your knees hate you for it. You collapse beside the fire. Same spot. Same rock. Somehow pokier this time. You pull your blanket around you. Smells slightly better today. Or maybe you're just going nose-blind. Either way, progress. Someone is telling a story about a haunted well that once cursed an entire village to speak in riddles. No one is paying attention. Not because it's not interesting, but because they've all heard it 12 times. You've heard 14. The bard tries again. New song. Same lute. Still missing a string. Still sounds like someone strangling a squirrel under a wagon wheel. You let the sounds lull you. The gentle clinking of armor plates. The distant neigh of a horse with insomnia. The flutter of canvas tent flaps in the rising wind. And, of course, the one guy snoring like he's fighting a war in his dreams and winning with nasal force. Your thoughts drift. To home. If you remember what that even looked like. To bread that isn't mostly air and grit. To baths. Real ones. With hot water. And soap. And maybe someone who doesn't scream when you take your shirt off. The wind picks up again. You hear bells. Or maybe it's just your imagination. Or maybe it's the goat. The one that chewed your sleeve this morning is now chewing someone else's boot. You smile. A tiny one. Sleep returns. Not fast. But certain. You let yourself drift. Another day done. Another chapter in your accidental biography of pain. Tomorrow will be louder. But for now, just listen. To the wind. To the whispers. To the forgotten sounds of the world after swords have cooled and feet have stopped running. You're safe. For now. You wake up to shouting. Of course you do. The sun hasn't even committed to rising yet, but the shouting has. Loud, frenzied, and utterly unbothered by your need for rest. It's coming from the far end of camp, near the cook fires, which probably means one of two things. Someone has stolen food. Someone has mistaken the gruel for soup again and caused an existential crisis. You sit up, your blanket tangled around you like a python made of damp wool. Your hair, such as it is, appears to be housing at least one twig in something that might be sap. You don't even question how. That's just what happens when your bed is an old mat stuffed with hay and lies. Your stomach growls. Loudly. It sounds like a dying walrus gargling nails. A noise so tragic, a nearby squire glances at you and tosses over a crust of bread without even saying anything. Just an odd, mutual suffering. A language all its own. You chew it slowly, thoughtfully. It tastes like sawdust and defeat. The shouting escalates. Turns out someone did steal food. Specifically, 2 boiled eggs, a half onion, and what appears to be the last of the dried goose jerky. A crime so heinous, the cook is brandishing a ladle like it's a weapon of divine judgment. The accused? A shaggy-haired foot soldier named Bram who, until this moment, you assumed was Partry. He swears innocence. Claims he was just rearranging the food to make it look nicer. Someone calls him an idiot Picasso. You're not sure what that means, but the tone was very clear. Eventually, the commander shows up, tells everyone to shut up, threatens to ration salt if the arguing doesn't stop. Salt. That's how serious this is. Everyone goes quiet. Not because they're scared, but because losing salt would make the already terrible food descend into something legally classified as a war crime. The cook glares daggers. Bram mumbles an apology that contains exactly zero sincerity. You finish your bread. Somehow, even more stale now. So before you crawl back into your half-frozen blanket and try to ignore the fact that your left foot is gone numb again, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you're genuinely enjoying this trip through mud, medieval misery, and minor culinary disasters. And tell me in the comments what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. It's always oddly comforting to know someone's falling asleep to medieval violence from halfway around the world. You head toward the stables. Because of course you've been assigned scout duty. Again, the stables smell intense. Equal parts hay, manure, and dreams that never quite came true. You approach your horse. His name is Beetroot. He's a thick-necked, suspicious-looking gelding with one eye that drifts slightly outward. No one is quite sure where Beetroot came from, or why he chooses violence when startled by birds. But he's yours. He greets you by farting loudly and trying to chew your belt. Affection, medieval style. You saddle up. The leather creaks. The cinch strap bites into your fingers. The reins are slightly sticky, either from honey or someone's snot. You choose not to investigate further. You're riding out with 3 others today. A rotating roster of the mildly expendable. You recognize them all by smell. There's Merrick, whose defining trait is sweating through his armor even in winter. There's Thilda, who sharpens her knives while making prolonged eye contact with anyone nearby. And there's Broderick, who once got into a philosophical argument with a rock. You all nod at each other. Grunt greetings. No one speaks much anymore. Words are expensive. Energy is limited. Plus, you all know what's coming. You ride north. The wind has fangs this morning. Sharp, biting cold that works its way down your neck and into your soul. Trees rattle overhead like bones in a sack. The sun filters weakly through the mist like a candle trapped inside a jar of milk. The silence is thick. No birds. No rustling. Just the rhythmic clop of hooves and the occasional sniffle from Merrick, who's still convinced he's allergic to pine trees. As you crest a hill, you see it. Smoke. Not camp smoke. Something darker. Heavier. A village. Or what used to be one. You approach slowly. The smell hits first. Burned wood. Charred meat. Something sweet that definitely shouldn't be sweet. The scent of recent violence, drifting on the wind like a warning you're too tired to heed. Thilda dismounts first. Draws her sword like it's second nature. Her face is unreadable, except for the slight twitch in her jaw. You follow, boots crunching over ash. The houses are blackened skeletons. Doors off hinges. Roofs collapsed. A chicken runs past, terrified, trailing a broken feather and what looks like someone's sock. You find the remains of what might have been a bakery. The oven still warm. Someone was here. Recently. Inside, there's a broken bench. A ladle on the floor. And a child's doll, scorched down one side, sitting upright like it's watching you. You leave it where it is. No one speaks. You move carefully, listening. There it is. A sound. Soft. Behind a wall. You gesture to the others. You round the corner. It's a dog. Alive. Mangy. Barking hoarsely. Guarding something. Or someone. Under a collapsed beam lies a man. Barely breathing. Eyes wide with shock. Legs crushed. You drop to a knee. Try to speak. He whispers something. You lean in. They sang, he says. Before they came. They sang. Your blood goes cold. You know what that means. Mercenaries. The ones from across the sea. The ones who sing when they ride into battle. Not songs of joy. Just sound. Vowel heavy, guttural chants meant to confuse and terrify. And they do. The moon dies shortly after. The dog doesn't stop barking. Back at your horses, Merrick finds a banner stuffed under some brush. It's foreign. Not royal. Not noble. Just a crude symbol painted in red. A wolf devouring its own tail. You've seen it before. Months ago. South of the river. You all mount up again. No one speaks. Not even Broderick, who usually has something weird to say about everything. The ride back is tense. Every rustling branch feels like an ambush. Every shadow seems deeper than it should. At one point, Beetroot stops dead. Refuses to move. Snorts like something ahead smells wrong. You wait. Silence. Then a raven calls from a tree, and Beetroot decides it's safe. You're not so sure. By the time you reach camp, your knees ache and your soul feels heavier than your chainmail. You dismount, stretch, and immediately regret it. You feel about 40 years older than you actually are. The commander listens as you report. He nods, sighs, adds another pin to the worn-out map in his tent. More red yarn. More bad news. He doesn't say it, but you can feel the truth behind his eyes. They're closing in. The enemy. Whoever they are. Whatever they want. They're not far. Night falls heavy. Clouds block out the stars. The moon is just aglow behind wool-dark sky. Dinner is thinner than usual. Someone forgot to soak the lentils. You chew slowly and pretend it's on purpose. A bard tries to lighten the mood. Plays a tune on his battered lute. It's a lullaby. Not one you know, but something about it catches. The camp softens. For a moment, you lean back against your rock. The one that somehow always finds a new way to jab you in the spine. You let the sounds wash over you. Boots on gravel. The crackle of fire. The distant snores of someone who dreams in violence. And that one guy still sharpening his sword like he's preparing for a test he forgot to study for. You close your eyes. The lullaby still echoing faintly. Tomorrow, you'll ride again. Into more ash. More silence. More forgotten sounds swallowed by the mud and time. But for now, you sleep. And in your sleep, you hear them. The sounds of swords no longer clashing. The dying echo of a horn. The faintest whisper of a chant carried on wind that remembers everything. You're still here. Somehow. Still listening. And sleep, that old betrayer, finally wins. For now. You wake up to the sound of bees. Or at least, something that starts as bees. It turns out to be a mun snoring through a broken nose while lying face first in a wooden bowl. The bees? Just a particularly aggressive dream you were having about a siege tower filled with insects. It was oddly specific and very upsetting. You groan. Your back crackles like old parchment, your knees make a sound reminiscent of a dropped xylophone, and your left shoulder feels like it's been replaced with a wheel of hard cheese. The camp is already awake. Because of course it is. The smell of smoke, sweat, and desperation hits you like a wet tunic to the face. You sit up slowly, carefully, as if your body is a poorly assembled trebuchet held together by grumbling and regret. Someone passes by with a chamber pot. It sloshes. You try not to look. You fail. The contents resemble something between stewed cabbage and defeat, which, incidentally, is also what's being served for breakfast. You limp toward the cook fire. There is a line. Of course there is. Everyone stares into the flames like they're expecting them to whisper secrets. The cook ladles out the morning mush, a thick, glutinous substance that quivers like it has unresolved trauma. You take your portion. Sit on a nearby log. It is wet. Naturally. The mush is alarming. It smells faintly of vinegar and something that might be turnip, but could also be regret. You eat it anyway, because starvation is worse, allegedly. Someone nearby is already arguing about boots. Apparently, someone took someone else's pair, and now there's a whole medieval soap opera unfolding over sole thickness and toe fungus. The sun rises reluctantly, casting a pale gold haze over the camp. It looks beautiful. Smells like feet. Your commander calls for a meeting. You shuffle over with the rest of the unlucky. You notice that everyone seems slightly more tense than usual, which is impressive, considering the baseline anxiety here is already somewhere between tax audit and being chased by wolves while naked. He lays it out simply. The enemy is close. Not pack your gear close. Hide your amulets and write a sad letter to your mother close. A skirmish is likely within the next few days. Maybe sooner. There's movement in the forests. Scouts have disappeared. Supplies are running low. And Beetroot, your traitorous horse, bit someone again last night for sneezing too loudly. Your orders? Hold the line. Dig in. And prepare. Ah, yes. That lovely medieval phrase that really means, spend hours moving dirt with a broken spade while hoping no one shoots you in the kidney. You're handed a shovel. Of course, it's missing the handle grip. You walk to the designated dig site. It's a patch of rocky soil that appears to be made entirely of spite and compacted despair. Every time you try to dig, you either hit a rock, a root, or something that squelches ominously. Nearby, Someone has already given up and is just pretending to dig by tossing the same clump of dirt over and over. You salute their creativity. You're sweating within minutes. It's not even hot out. Just a kind of damp, cloying cold that makes your body work harder to stay warm while simultaneously losing the will to live. Your boots fill with mud. Your gloves develop a mysterious hole. Your teeth hurt, possibly from clenching them every time a splinter finds your palm. By the time the midday horn sounds, you've made roughly enough progress to bury a moderately sized loaf of bread. Not exactly trench warfare, but it's something. You sit. You breathe. You contemplate faking your own death and joining a monastery where at least the food is bland on purpose. Lunch is a thin broth containing exactly 2 peas, half a leek, and what might be the shadow of a ham bone. You slurp it in silence, watching as crows circle overhead like tiny winged accountants taking inventory of future corpses. Across the field, movement catches your eye. It's a boy, no older than 13, running barefoot, clutching something wrapped in cloth. He's clearly a local, probably from one of the nearby villages. He reaches the camp, stumbles, gasps for breath, and drops the cloth-wrapped object at the commander's feet. It's a severed hand, still gripping a dagger. Everyone goes silent, except the crows. They love this part. The boy explains, between sobs, that the forest men have moved into the hills. They burned his farm, took his uncle, left the hand as a warning. Your commander frowns. Not in horror, just logistics. He orders a scouting party to head out before nightfall. Guess who's volunteered? That's right. You. Because you once mentioned knowing how to read a map. A skill that now condemns you to every miserable journey this army needs to make in the dark, through bramble-infested terrain that seems to actively resent your presence. You gather your gear. Saddle up Beetroot. He bites your sleeve. Affectionately. Probably. The sun is dipping low now. Shadows stretch like long fingers over the scrubby hills. The wind has a nervous edge to it, carrying smells you don't recognize. Smoke, wet moss, and that faint copper tang of something recently dead. Your group moves quietly. Too quietly. Even the horses seem uneasy. The forest thickens. Branches scrape your armor. Birds scatter. You hear the occasional crunch of something stepping where it shouldn't. Then silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. A twig snaps. Everyone freezes. You see them before they move. Barely. Shapes. Humanoid. Fast. They're painted. Camouflaged with mud and leaves. Weapons drawn. You have 2 seconds to decide, flee or fight. You raise your shield. Not out of strategy. Just pure panic. Arrows fly. One hits a tree inches from your head with a sound like a slap from God. Your horse rears. Chaos. Yelling. Steel on steel. Wood on bone. You're knocked from your saddle. Hit the ground hard. The wind punches out of you. Your ribs complain. Violently. You scramble behind a rock. Draw your dagger. It's small. Sad. About as useful as a butter knife in a bear fight. One of the enemy lunges toward you. You parry, purely by accident. He grunts in surprise. You grunt in terror. Another arrow flies. Hits him in the shoulder. He drops. You don't know where the arrow came from. You don't question it. You run. You run harder than you ever have. Through brambles. Over roots. Past dead things and near dead things. Eventually, you reach the edge of the woods. Campfires glimmer in the distance. You collapse just inside the perimeter. Covered in blood. Some yours. Most not. Your chest heaves. You taste copper. Beetroot trots up moments later. Completely unharmed. He snorts as if to say, "Where have you been?" You don't answer. You can't. You're shaking. The commander listens. Nods grimly. Another pin. Another line on the map. You're patched up by the camp medic. She tells you to stop getting stabbed. You promise nothing. Dinner is a small bowl of beans and 2 spoons of wine. Luxury. You fall asleep near the fire. You dream of arrows. Of chants. Of silence so loud it makes your bones vibrate. And beneath it all, the same low drumbeat. The heartbeat of a battlefield not yet spilled open. Tomorrow, it might. But not tonight. Tonight, the stars come out, muted behind cloud, like tiny witnesses watching history forget you. And sleep comes, slowly, Gently. Wrapped in bandages and bruises. The kind of sleep only the exhausted truly earn. And you? You've more than earned it. You wake up cold. Not I should pull my cloak tighter cold. No. That would be cute. This is the kind of cold that gets into your bones, argues with your marrow, and sets up a permanent winter festival in your spleen. You open your eyes slowly, because you're 40% sure your eyelids have frozen shut. The fire went out sometime in the night. Naturally. The last log is just a lump of smoldering disappointment. You nudge it with a stick, but it only coughs a little smoke and gives up. Much like your optimism. Around you, the camp is stirring. In the loosest possible sense of the word. It's less stirring and more groaning in layers. One man sneezes, so hard his helmet falls off. A tent collapses in the distance. Someone curses in 3 languages and then resumes snoring. You attempt to sit up. A poor decision. Every muscle feels like it's been briefly rented out for a tavern brawl. Your neck crackles. Your spine is staging a rebellion. Your legs are filled with something between stone and sorrow. Breakfast arrives in the form of a boiled root vegetable that was likely illegal in 4 kingdoms for crimes against texture. It's soft in the middle, crunchy on the edges, and has the personality of a wet sock. You eat it anyway. There's a commotion near the command tent. Someone important has arrived. You shuffle closer to look, because you've run out of things to complain about and curiosity is the only functioning part of your brain. It's a messenger. He looks too clean. That's your first red flag. The second red flag is that he's smiling, which in this context is either very suspicious or proof that he's concussed. He hands over a sealed letter and quickly turns his horse. Probably wise. No one in this camp trusts anyone who smells like soap. The letter contains orders. From very high up. Possibly someone who still has shoes with matching buckles. The gist of it? Reinforcements are not coming. They're busy dealing with another rebellion somewhere warmer, where the mud is more symbolic and less ankle-deep. In the meantime, you're expected to hold position, maintain morale, and harass the enemy supply lines. 3 phrases that translate roughly to: keep dying where you are. Smile about it. Go poke the hornet's nest with a stick. You're assigned to the 3rd category. Because of course you are. The scouts have spotted an enemy supply cart moving along an old trail at the edge of the valley. Lightly guarded. Probably. Hopefully. Maybe. You're going with 6 others. All of whom look like they haven't slept since the last comet appeared. You strap on your gear. Everything is damp. Your boots squelch. Beetroot glares at you, clearly displeased to be moving again. You try to explain it's not your fault, but he snorts, unconvinced. The wind bites harder as you ride out. The hills are quiet. Too quiet. Someone always says that. And they're always right. Your party follows the tree line, weaving between twisted oaks and suspiciously dead patches of grass. You hear birds. Distant hooves. The occasional stomach grumble that might actually be a badger. Eventually, you spot it. The cart. Creaking slowly along the ridge. 2 oxen. 1 driver. No guards. You all look at each other. This feels wrong. But you've all come too far to care. The commander gives the nod. You break from the trees. Charge. Or, well, jog briskly. None of you have the energy for a real charge. The driver sees you and panics. He grabs something from beneath the seat and dives off the cart, disappearing into the tall grass like a frightened gopher. You reach the cart, open the back flap, and find absolutely nothing. Not food. Not weapons. Not even wine. Just one very confused chicken. It blinks at you, then clucks disapprovingly. That's when the arrows start. From the trees. Of course. You duck instinctively. One of your comrades yells. Another topples from his horse with a sound like someone dropping a full sack of potatoes down a flight of stairs. It's an ambush. Because it's always an ambush. You scramble behind the cart. Beetroot, sensing danger, bolts with an impressive level of dignity and zero regard for your well-being. You draw your sword. Immediately regret it. Your shoulder screams. Your wrist cramps. Your weapon is mostly rust and bad decisions. One of the attackers charges. You parry. Barely. His blade glances off your helmet. You see stars. Possibly also saints. You stumble backward. Trip over the cartwheel. Land hard. The chicken hops onto your chest and screams directly into your face. You flail. The attacker laughs. Then he's hit in the neck with a rock. A rock, thrown by one of your companions who clearly had nothing better on hand. He collapses. You throw the chicken at another attacker. It works, which raises all kinds of tactical questions. The fight ends as abruptly as it began. 3 of you remain standing. 1 limping, 1 bleeding, and 1 is just gone, probably hiding somewhere smart. Like a hole. You regroup. The cart is useless, but you find a bag of letters under the seat. Orders, notes, sketches of your camp layout. You've been watched, studied. You ride back fast. Well, fastish. Your horse finds you eventually, smelling smug. You collapse into camp. Deliver the news. The commander frowns so hard his mustache quivers. A council is called, which, in medieval terms, means a dozen tired men argue for 2 hours about where to put more mud. By the time the shouting ends, the conclusion is grim. A larger attack is coming. Soon. Tomorrow. Maybe even tonight. You're to prepare the defenses. Again. Trenches. Pike's oil. That last one is new. You spend the rest of the day dragging barrels of something that definitely isn't olive oil up to the perimeter. It smells like fire and regret. Your hands are blistered. Your back is on strike. Supper is canceled, which feels illegal. You eat a piece of dried bread you found in your pocket. It's older than some of your scars, but you chew it anyway. Night falls. The fires burn low, and the sounds of the camp change. No more laughing. No dice games. No badly sung drinking songs. Just quiet, tense, waiting. You sit with your back against a post, staring into the darkness beyond the trees. Every gust of wind feels like footsteps. Every owl call feels like a warning. And somewhere out there, beyond the ridge, across the valley, someone else is doing the same. A soldier. Watching. Listening. Maybe wondering if you are the monster in the woods tonight. You close your eyes. Not to sleep. Just to rest. Your sword lies across your lap. Your hand wrapped around the hilt. The fire crackles softly beside you. Insects buzz lazily. The wind shifts. You smell smoke. Not campfire smoke. The other kind. You stand slowly. Turn to alert the commander. Then you see it. A flicker on the horizon. Tiny torches. Dozens. No, hundreds. Moving like a glowing river toward your camp. The attack is beginning. You don't panic. You've passed panic. You're in the strange space beyond fear, where your brain just says, okay, sure. Let's do this again. Everyone scrambles to position. The horns blow. The drummers beat out the signal. The same rhythm as always. Boom, boom, boom. You lift your shield. Take your place at the line. The stars blink above you, and you wonder if they're laughing, or just watching. As always, quiet witnesses to the noise of men. You inhale, hold it, exhale, and wait. You don't remember the first arrow. It was fast. It was loud. It hissed past your head like an angry snake with excellent aim and a questionable childhood. The second one, that you remember, it landed squarely in your shield and rattled your arm like you were a dinner bell at a haunted tavern. You grunt. Because you're tough now, apparently. Your breath fogs in front of you. The chill has been replaced with adrenaline. You no longer feel the cold, or your fingers, or your better judgment. The enemy approaches slowly, which is either a sign of confidence or the fact that mud sucks for everyone, even them. From the torchlight, you see them. Rows of men, armor dull and pitted, faces smeared with soot, war paint, or possibly just the remnants of last week's dew. Their banner flaps lazily in the wind. A black wolf on red, or maybe a red wolf on black. It doesn't matter. You don't care about their heraldry. You care about the sharp things in their hands. They keep coming. Closer. Closer. The drums resume. Boom. 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 You feel it in your chest. You wonder if this is the moment you die. Not in a dramatic, noble, song-worthy way. More like, oops, I slipped in some blood and cracked my head on a rock way. Next to you, a soldier pukes. It's mostly soup. A little fear. The commander rides along the line, shouting something motivational. You can't hear him. You're too busy concentrating on not passing out. The oil pots are lit. A wall of flame erupts across the front line. It's dramatic, also wildly dangerous, but it makes people feel heroic, so it stays. The enemy halts briefly, recalculating their life choices. Then the screaming starts. And they charge. Your feet are suddenly cemented in the mud. Your brain is doing long division. Your arms feel like jelly-filled logs. But you raise your shield, just in time. The impact is immediate. A clash of bodies, metal, breath, and bad intentions. You're shoved, slammed, slashed. Your sword moves on instinct. It clangs against something, someone. You think you might have hit a helmet, or a shield, or a cow. Everything is noise and color and force. Someone screams in your ear. You elbow them, or maybe apologize. Hard to say. You step forward, slip, catch yourself. The enemy line breaks like a badly written play. People scatter, trip, stab, trip again. Someone falls at your feet and grabs your ankle. You kick them. They don't get up. You keep moving. Not out of bravery, out of momentum. And fear. Mostly fear. You see beetroot in the distance. Your horse. Somehow behind enemy lines, munching on someone's saddlebag. Unbothered. You envy him deeply. The fighting blurs. There is no choreography. No cinematic elegance. Just grunting and sweat and the occasional high-pitched scream from someone discovering they are, in fact, quite mortal. You end up in a ditch. Not metaphorically. A literal trench full of blood, dirt, a boot, and the shattered remains of someone's wooden bowl. You lie there for a moment, reconsidering your career choices. Then someone yells your name. Which is unfortunate, because it means they expect you to stand back up. You do. Barely. You swing wildly. Mississippi, try again. Hit something. You're bleeding. From somewhere. Doesn't matter. Everyone's bleeding. It's the fashion now. Eventually, the tide turns. You're not sure why. Maybe reinforcements. Maybe dumb luck. Maybe the enemy realized this hill isn't worth it. They start retreating. Slowly. Then faster. One trips. Is trampled. You almost feel bad. Almost. Then it's over. Not the war. Just this particular nightmare. The enemy is gone. Smoke rises from the grass. Corpses litter the field. The air smells like sweat, oil, old bread, and something distinctly intestinal. You sit down. Right there in the mud. Someone throws a wet cloak over your shoulders. You don't know who. You don't ask. Your helmet is dented. Your armor is scratched. Your will to live is on backorder. The commander limps over. Says something about holding the line and honor, and the king will hear of this. You nod. Then promptly throw up at his boots. He pretends not to notice. You lie back and stare at the sky. The stars are still there. Mocking you. So peaceful. So quiet. So not covered in human viscera. You think you see a comet. Or maybe that's just a concussion. The camp is alive with groans, cries, the clink of chainmail being removed, and the unmistakable sound of someone trying to boil soup over a shattered log. You crawl to what's left of your tent. It's mostly there. The flap hangs by a thread. Your blanket is damp. Your straw mattress is gone, possibly stolen or eaten. You lie down on your shield. It smells like copper and decisions you can't take back. You exhale slowly. The ground beneath you is pulsing with warmth and horror. Someone's snoring 3 feet away. You find it oddly comforting. Tomorrow, they'll bury the dead. Or not. Sometimes the crows just handle that. The knights will argue about tactics. The commander will write a letter to someone who won't read it. And you'll wake up. Probably. Unless the soup kills you first. Your dreams are strange. You see a feast. A warm bed. A bath. An actual toilet. You wake up to the sound of a man using a tree stump as a drum. Why? No reason. He's just lost his mind. You crawl out of the tent and discover someone has made porridge. It's gray. It jiggles. You eat 2 bowls. Someone pats your back. Not in gratitude. Just to make sure you're still breathing. Later that day, scouts return. More enemy troops. Less than a mile away. Building siege engines. Catapults. Ballistas. Something called a dragon hook, which is neither a hook nor a dragon. Just a terrifying pile of wood and nails. You are told to prepare again. You nod and begin gathering wood, because that's your job now. Warrior, builder, human scarecrow. The nights are louder now. With the enemy nearby, every twig snap is cause for alarm. Every owl hoot triggers a dozen drawn swords. Paranoia is the camp's new religion. One night, someone panics and stabs a tree stump. Twice. You do not judge him. You join him. You think about riding home. Then remember you haven't bathed in a month and the only paper available was last used to wrap fish. The next few days are a blur. Build defenses. Clean weapons. Dodge arrows. Repeat. Your hands are raw. Your lips cracked. Your soul feels like an overused sponge. One morning, the wind changes. Carries with it the smell of fresh bread, which is deeply suspicious. You find a source. A merchant. Yes, a merchant. In a war zone. Selling loaves of something resembling bread for 10 times its value. You buy 2. You don't care. You eat them in a ditch while 2 knights argue about tent placement. The sky darkens. Another storm. This one brings hail. It's biblical. Or at least theatrical. You shelter under a broken shield. Muttering curses. Bargaining with non-existent deities. Promising to kiss the next nun you meet if you survive. The hail stops. You immediately forget your promise. Someone slips in the mud and dislocates a knee. You laugh, then slip yourself, and cry a little. The cycle continues. Wake, eat, fight, bleed, nap, repeat. You forget what day it is, or year. Someone says it's the Feast of St. Hugh. You ask, who? They shrug. Some guy who was boiled alive. Or maybe a goose farmer. Depends on the source. That tracks. You attend the service. It involves standing in the rain while a priest yells at the clouds. You pretend to feel spiritually cleansed. You mostly just want wine. Finally, a letter arrives. Peace talks. Allegedly. Which means maybe less murder. Maybe more awkward negotiations over cheese tariffs. No one trusts it. You sharpen your blade anyway. Because history has taught you one thing. The only constant in medieval warfare is that it always gets worse before it gets slightly different. You sit by the fire that night. Your legs sore. Your heart numb. The chicken, yes, that same one, wanders into camp again. You do not question it. You share your soup with it. You are comrades now. And tomorrow? Well, you'll wake up and do it all again. Because you are a soldier. And this is your battlefield. And the sounds never stop. They just change. You wake up in a puddle. Again. You're not entirely sure if it's rainwater, spilled soup, or the collected essence of several bad decisions. It's cold. It smells faintly of onion, regret, and maybe beetroot. The vegetable. Or the horse. You're too tired to care. Your body groans like a haunted gate as you sit up. Every joint clicks. Your shoulders ache from the weight of your armor, your arms from swinging a sword shaped like a shovel, and your legs have filed an official complaint. You stand. Eventually, your right boot squelches. You don't ask questions anymore. Across the camp, someone is screaming. Not out of battle rage. No, this is the scream of a man being medically helped. Which is worse? Much worse. You shuffle toward the makeshift infirmary. You know you're not dying, but you're close enough to flirt with the concept. The hospital is a tent. If you're being generous. Realistically, it's a torn sheet flapping over some sticks. Inside, blood, straw, a monk with no discernible training, and a bucket of tools that look like they were borrowed from a blacksmith with a drinking problem. You sit down on a crate. It collapses. You try again with a rock. Success. The monk looks at you, then at your arm, then back at you. He says something in Latin. You nod, despite understanding none of it. It might have been a diagnosis, or a prayer, or a recipe. He pokes your shoulder. You yelp. He nods approvingly. You are declared inflamed. That's the entire diagnosis. You ask what that means. He shrugs. It means you are inflamed. Excellent. He pulls out a knife. You do not approve, but you're too polite to say anything. He slices your sleeve open, examines a scab, then suggests bloodletting. You object. He counters with "You'll feel lighter." which is technically not a lie. Before you can protest further, he's tying a belt around your arm and rummaging in a box of leeches. Yes, leeches. Welcome to medieval healthcare. The leeches are lovingly plucked from a jar filled with something green and wiggly. They are placed delicately on your forearm. They squirm. They latch. You want to scream, but everyone else is doing that already, and you don't want to seem unoriginal. He tells you to sit for a while. You ask how long that is. He says, until you feel less bad or until the leeches fall off. You consider dying instead. The tent is filled with the smells of herbs, blood, and what you sincerely hope is boiled cabbage. Next to you, a man is having his finger reattached with twine. Another is getting his evil humors drained through his foot. Someone else is being exorcised. You ask what his illness is. They say melancholy. You realize this place is just a wellness retreat run by someone who hates people. Eventually, the leeches fall off. You are, according to the monk, cleansed. You don't feel cleansed. You feel dizzy and vaguely insulted. He gives you a salve. It smells like vinegar and crushed hope. You rub it on your arm. It immediately begins to burn. This, he says, is a good sign. You're not convinced. You stumble out of the tent. Everything spins. A soldier offers you wine. You drink it. It is not wine. It is something that was once wine, died, and came back haunted. But it warms your chest. You ask if there's anything stronger. He hands you a chunk of bread dipped in spirits. You eat it. Then pass out next to the latrine pit. You wake up to a dog licking your face. It's not your dog. You don't own a dog. You assume you've just been adopted. Your new dog, creatively named Stab, follows you back to your tent. You lie down, wrap yourself in your damp blanket, and close your eyes. Then someone starts coughing. Not just a casual, I swallowed a crumb cough. No. This is I may be dying but want to do it theatrically cough. You groan. The monk is called again. He mutters something about plague. Everyone quietly scoots 5 feet away. The coughing man is wrapped in a tarp and relocated to the edge of camp, near the guy who thinks he's a goose. Nobody questions this arrangement. You ask the monk if it's contagious. He shrugs. Probably. But you've survived worse. You find this deeply unhelpful. That night, it rains again. Harder. The tent leaks in several new and exciting places. You shift your bedroll. Then again. Then finally just give up and sleep in your helmet. It's not comfortable, but it keeps the rats out of your hair. Morning arrives reluctantly. Breakfast is thin gruel, half a boiled turnip, and a suspicious slab of cheese. You eat it all, because hunger always wins. You go back to the infirmary for a checkup. Your arm is redder. The monk smiles. Good. The fire is rising. You ask what that means. He says, it's better than the cold sinking. You nod as if that means anything. Someone next to you has their tooth pulled. With pliers. And no warning. You decide your arm is probably fine. You return to your post, armed with a dull sword, a marginally better attitude, and a small leech bite shaped like the kingdom of Mercia. A noble look. Around the camp, others are recovering. One soldier has a splint made of chicken bones and leather strips. Another is using a helmet as a urinal. Multitasking. You watch as a woman, one of the camp followers, tends to a boy with a fever. She applies a poultice of moss and mint and slaps him gently every few minutes. This, apparently, is a healing ritual. The boy looks better. Or unconscious. Which counts as rest. You sit by the fire, soaking wet, sore, but mildly less inflamed. Someone passes around a pipe filled with something herbal. You inhale. You regret it. Everything tastes like burnt grass and lies. You pass out again. This time in your own tent. Progress. Days pass. You get stronger. The arm swelling goes down. Your appetite returns. You eat a full bowl of porridge without wincing. Victory. Then comes the inspection. A knight from the capital. Polished. Tall. Judgy. He walks through the camp, muttering criticisms. Disorganized, he says. Unsanitary, he says. Reeks of despair, he says. You agree with all of it. He asks for the surgeon. The monk appears, covered in soot, carrying a spoon and a bag of leeches. The knight does not look impressed. You're ordered to line up for review. Your armor is crooked. Your helmet smells like soup. You haven't bathed in 37 days. Perfect. The knight gives a speech about honor and discipline and keeping the faith. Half the men nod. The other half fall asleep standing up. You're somewhere in between. Then he leaves, as mysteriously as he arrived. You return to your duties, sharpening blades, mending tents, avoiding rats. One evening, while gathering firewood, you trip over something soft. You look down. A bag. A healer's bag. You open it. Herbs, salves, dried rose petals. A small bottle of something labeled "Do Not Drink." You drink it. You see colors. Not just colors. Feelings, shapes, time itself. You lie down and contemplate existence. A passing soldier draws a mustache on your face with ash. You are now a war hero. Eventually, you return to consciousness. Back in the infirmary, the monk glares at you. He holds up the bottle. "I was saving this for surgery." You apologize. He mutters something in Latin and throws a cabbage at you. You eat it, without peeling it. You're too tired to care. Later that week, a new group of wounded arrives. From another battle. Their faces pale. Their wounds deep. The monk works late. You help. Because someone has to. You bandage a man's ribs. Change a poultice. Hold someone's hand as they quietly leave the world. No screaming. Just silence. And that is the loudest sound of all. You sit by the fire that night, staring into the flames. Someone plays a flute. Badly. But it's the first music you've heard in weeks. You don't stop them. You listen. And fall asleep right there, in the dirt, covered in ash and bandages and the faint smell of vinegar. You dream of fields. Not battlefields. Just fields. Grass. Wind. Peace. And the distant, forgotten sound of nothing at all.